President and CEO of the Christy Group, Jim Christy.
Thank you.
Jim is going to talk about the dangers that hackers present. So we just heard about all these wireless networks. Now we're going to hear about how to fortify them.
Yeah, I'm the knuckle dragger here for this conference, so I'm just a retired cop. So what I wanted to do this morning is, first off, as soon as my slides get going, is talk about, everybody's talked about cyber and connectivity. What does cyber mean anyway? And I had the opportunity to be detailed from my agency to Senator Sam Nunn on the Permanent Subcommittee for Investigations back in 1996. And we were to hold hearings on the cyber threat to national security. And we had John Deutsch come in to testify. And part of my job as a staffer was to prepare the senators with the right questions and know when the witness, to be able to follow the questions and the answers from the witnesses. So what was interesting was John Deutsch was testifying, and lawyers, most of the senators, Senator Nunn was a lawyer, you never ask questions you don't already know the answer to, right? So he was listening to John Deutsch's testimony on information warfare capabilities of different countries, and then all of a sudden he blurted out, so what does cyber mean anyway? And I mean, you should have seen Deutsch's face. There was a shock. He went pale, his jaw dropped, there was a pregnant pause, and he said, "May I have a moment, Senator?" And he turned to all his staff in the first row, and they had a huddle for about 30 seconds. He came back and he said, "Senator, I'll have to get back to you." So I have a letter that he sent the very next day. It says, "Dear Senator Nunn, during yesterday's hearings on foreign information warfare capabilities, you asked a rather indelicate question. What does cyber mean anyway? I must admit that your query caused a great deal of discomfort here. While everyone had used the term, no one had heretofore felt any need to know precisely what the hell it meant." I put hell in, he didn't do that. "In light of my promise to keep Congress fully and currently informed, I pressed for an answer. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA's research revealed that the term cybernetics was coined by the father of cybernetics, Norbert Wiener, in 1948. In Mr. Weiner's words, we had decided to call the entire field of control and communication theory, whether in a machine or an animal, by the name cybernetics, which we formed from the Greek cybernetes, or steersman." Okay? Department of State concurred with CIA's findings, but wished to point out that the Greek cybernetes is related to the Latin gubernator, meaning steersman or governor. The Defense Intelligence Agency, which I hold in very high regard, is not yet ready to make a judgment. It's exploring the possibility that cyber may have come from the Greek cybister or diver, from which we also derive the word cybister, or a genus of large diving beetles. I hope that clears up any confusion. So now everybody knows what cyber means. So the internet is a great and wonderful place, and you've heard all the speakers all week talk about how terrific all this connectivity in our vehicles and in our cities is going to make life so much easier. Individuals use it, countries use it, cities use it. And the internet's a beautiful thing, but actually it's a jungle out there. There's always somebody that's out there in the internet that's going to take advantage of you. Just ask any one of these companies. I probably have been notified 4 or 5 times in the last year and a half of my credit card or email or personal information might have been compromised. And the criminal motives run the gamut, not just traditional crimes, but also cyber crimes. And it's, greed, patriotism, fear, sex is a big one, love, jealousy, politics, activism, runs the gamut. And it shouldn't surprise us that every tool that mankind has ever built to make us more effective, efficient, or safer has been turned around and used as a weapon against us. Whether it's a rock or a stick, or an automobile, a hammer, a chain, we shouldn't be shocked that computers are turned around against us and used as a weapon system. Right after my detail to Senator Nunn in '96, I was detailed to the President's Infrastructure Protection Task Force at the FBI headquarters. And I was contacted by David Marconi. and he was a screenwriter, still a screenwriter, wrote Enemy of the State with Will Smith and Gene Hackman. And he was writing, he had a project, it was a movie called WorldWar3.com, and he asked if I could help. And the government said, yeah, go help him. So David and I worked together on the cyber attacks. The basic premise of the movie, we had this hacker, a foreign hacker, and the US had bombed some location and killed his father. And he decides to unite all the hackers in the world to attack the United States and take out the critical infrastructure. And so in 2006, I get a call. So we worked for a couple months on this, and the movie never got made because of 9/11, and it was put on the shelf. 2006, I got a call from David, and he said, congratulations. He said, all your cyber attacks and infrastructure attacks that we had for WorldWar3.com got used in Die Hard 4, Live Free or Die Hard. And so if you remember that movie, what they did is they just took World War III off the shelf. They needed a new Bruce Willis movie, Die Hard 4, and they changed a couple of the characters, and off we go. And so if you remember that movie, we had a fire sale. That was everything must go. All your critical infrastructures must go. It's a cyber warfare systematic attack on the nation's infrastructure. And so in that, we went after traffic lights. And the reason I put in traffic lights is because I arrested a hacker back in the 80s. And so I'm interviewing this kid. He was about 16 years old. And I said to him, so if you had the ultimate hack, what would you do? Oh, he said, man, I'd hack into a city's traffic control systems, and I'd turn all the traffic lights to green at the same time. So that was in the movie. So the railroad lines, how direction, gas and oil pipelines, critical, all controlled by computers, satellite, and then the ultimate goal of the bad guy was the financial systems. And there was one great tagline, one quote in the movie was Gabriel, who was the bad guy, happened to be a DOD disgruntled employee, and he said to John McCain, John, you're a Timex watch in a digital age. But he wasn't hacked. So 2 years ago, the Smithsonian Channel has a series of, So David calls me, he's living in Paris, and he says the Smithsonian is doing documentaries on movies and what's the real story behind the movies. And they did one on Da Vinci Code, Platoon, Apollo 13, True Grit, all that. And now they wanted to do one on Live Free or Die Hard. So he said, I referred them to you. So, okay. So the film crew came over and we talked. And basically what we did is we broke down the entire movie and each attack on the city's critical infrastructures. And we put in, and we explained in this documentary, a real world attack, much smaller in scope, that had already occurred 10 to 15 years ago. So, all the things that I've heard about connecting everything in your car makes me kind of nervous because there are bad guys out there that are going to take advantage of this. Like you've heard all week, and especially this morning, cities are absolutely connected today. And there are systems that are control these things. They're called supervisory controller and data acquisition systems, SCADA. And they control everything from the water treatment plants, dams. We had a kid that accessed the SCADA system for a dam in Arizona, and he had system administrator control of that. And this is like 20 years ago. And he could have opened the floodgates to the dam and flooded all the cities downstream. He didn't do that, but he had the access and the control to do that. Traffic control systems. I don't want to point out LA, but they told us when I was on the President's Critical Infrastructure Protection Task Force that they couldn't be hacked. And we said, who does your service for this? Well, the company that installed it. And how do they do that service? Well, they do it remotely from Atlanta. They dial in through a modem. And they had total access. So if you guessed the password and user ID, you could add access to the traffic control system. And cities, the President's Infrastructure Protection Task Force and Commission outlined these 18 critical infrastructures for the United States. They're absolutely essential to not only our national security, public safety, but also our economic security today. What's really scary is that 85% of these are owned and operated by the private sector. And there are absolutely no rules on what cybersecurity needs to be applied to protect our national security or our economic security or public safety. So pretty scary, my book. So I think what we have to do is we have to do a whole lot better job of being proactive and lobbying for resources and getting people educated. You know, all these smart people that have been coming up here all week, they're all good people. And they think that the technologies they're developing are going to be used for good, as intended. But I come from the other side of the house, and I watch how people exploit and take advantage of all these others. So we have to educate our legislators, number one, state legislators, providing positions, equipment, training to these folks. Police chiefs. Anybody want to take a guess how many law enforcement agencies there are in the United States? Somebody yell out a number. 18,000 different law enforcement agencies. And they're all based on geography, a city, a county, a state, a campus. And cyber doesn't respect geographical boundaries. And there are not 18,000 computer crime investigators in the United States. There just aren't. So police chiefs need to get educated. There aren't crimes today that don't have a digital nexus. And then we have to educate the educators. You know, I come from the Baltimore area, so we have NSA, we have the Department of Defense Cybercrime Center, we have Cyber Command, we have the Defense Information Systems Agency, probably, arguably, the cybersecurity hub of the entire world. And the school systems spell computer with a K. I mean, they just don't get it yet. So we need to educate the educators, and then Congress. Good luck with that. So I created a nonprofit organization to stimulate kids' excitement about digital forensics and cybercrime. So we have two different challenges that are online. One's online, Digital Forensics Challenge. You download the exercises and you actually process it, come up with an answer, and you submit the answers. And you have about 10 and a half months to process those exercises. And then I have a crime scene that I take on the road to schools and to conferences. And it's really hands-on. Nobody pretends that they're a rocket scientist, but everybody thinks they're Dick Tracy, right? So everybody can process a crime scene. So I actually have a digital crime scene. I put it out there. You read a one-page scenario and a one-page interrogation. You glove up. You go into a crime scene. You don't know what you're walking into, and your job is to find all the digital devices. And you have 15 minutes to process the crime scene. Then based on the scenario, you have to triage all those devices and figure out which one you're going to put in the forensic workstation to find the evidence. So we've put this on several times. Colin Powell went through it back in March of last year. We had David McCallum, who's a friend of mine, you know, Ducky on the TV show NCIS. And for some of you old guys, Man from U.N.C.L.E., right? He went through, but you know, he plays a medical examiner on NCIS, so we had to put the body down on the ground so he felt more comfortable. But basically, the crime scene is a mannequin. The mannequin has about 25 different digital devices on them, and probably has, about 10 terabytes worth of data. You know, hundreds and hundreds of 100 times more data than Snowden had or Bradley Manning had exfiltrated. So bottom line here is don't be a Timex watch in a digital age, but we have to do it securely. We have to do this smartly. And you know, we have to think about the bad guys. When we develop something, we have to keep the bad guys in mind. Okay? Thank you.
Here, I'm going to have you stay up. We're going to take some questions. That digital crime scene sounds like me sometimes. I carry around like 5 phones at any given time that I'm testing. So not that many terabytes, but come on up again. We're going to have Drew Johnson come up. We do have some time, just a couple minutes here for questions. So again, remember Drew talked about those wireless networks, and then of course, Jim, you just heard talk about the hackers. Really fascinating stuff. I'm sure you guys have some questions, so don't be shy. Got 3 microphones, 1, 2, 3. Anyone?
So this is kind of a related question between the two. On wireless networks, especially with cellular and these communication paths, they have a distance reach. What do you do about North Dakota, where they don't have the towers spaced apart, and getting petroleum, getting landlines for power, or even propane to run these towers to keep the communication in place is an issue, not only here, but now you move that problem to like the middle of Africa or South America. How does that work? Because now you want to disrupt the communication, you shut off the power, and now the whole area goes down.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, and we actually are in both of those areas, actually working in the kind of the Dakotas and actually starting to look in Africa and India and other places. That's where we see a lot of value, in particular with these low-power WAN technologies, where actually base stations are really inexpensive. It's pretty easy to extend connectivity over large distances for pretty low cost beyond what cellular would make sense for commercially. So really that's a part of how we think about, some of these islands are going to grow up naturally because of those kind of use cases, but they have to be done at a cost basis that will make sense.
Go ahead.
So I'm Professor Isaac Rubin from the Electrical Engineering Department at UCLA, and I have the following question. What do you think about integrating VANE, Vehicular Ad Hoc Network Technology, which is currently being standardized by IEEE and European organization, as well as in the Far East, with cellular and Wi-Fi?
Yeah, we definitely we're also watching that the development of those connectivity technologies, and absolutely important. If we think about again all of these kind of layers of distances of devices talking to kind of the cloud versus devices talking to each other or talking to other types of devices, this is where this is going to be essential, because obviously you can't be ping-ponging things back up to the cloud to talk to each other. All these different things are going to happen and have to happen. There again, you have to look at making sure that that's going to happen in a really secure way. I love there's a lot of tie-in this morning about different people talking about security. That's actually really critical, and I'm sure you're probably a part of working on making sure that is highly secure.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for just one more quick question over here.
Yeah, I just had a question about, wanted to get both of your opinions on NHTSA's strategy with dedicated short-range communication for vehicle-to-vehicle as well as vehicle-to-infrastructure. So I wanted to just see what your opinions are of that.
You want to?
Everything that's been built has been broken. So a lot of systems depend on GPS. What happens if that goes away or is corrupted? So how do you have autonomous driving without GPS? So there are nation states that spend tons of money to be able to exploit these when they need to. Nation states are not going to take advantage of us at this point. But if a terrorist was to be able to get that information from a defector or whatever, from whatever country, I don't think a terrorist would hesitate to implement any of those strategies.
And yeah, from my perspective, I'll go back and kind of the same answer of, V2V, V2X communication, essential for, if we think about kind of all the layers of communication that need to happen. The use cases are kind of slightly different than what we're addressing, but definitely an important part of kind of the overall fabric of devices and things communicating with each other.
Okay, round of applause for Drew Johnson and Jim Christy. Thank you so much.